Welcome, friends, family, students, teachers, community members, and those on Facebook Live, to the first Avonworth Caravan for Change, organized by the Avonworth High School Social Justice Club. I'm Kira DeWillett, the Avonworth High School principal. I'm humbled to be standing here and feel that the voices of our students are those of the most value. They are full of confidence, hope, and the urgency in their demand for change. I will simply share a piece of my journey and the incredible growth I've experienced and still need. I feel inspiration, obligation, and immense responsibility as an educational leader. Not stepping forward, not learning, and not advocating is simply unacceptable. I'm profoundly moved by Hannah, Macy, Jada, and Mr. Warren. Working with this group has been and will continue to be a gift. My hope is that when a graduate leaves Avonworth in that cap and gown, not only can he or she walk into college or a career with intelligence and confidence, but an open mind, a questioning spirit, and a passion to learn from others. Is history presented from various voices? Are students exposed to authors different than themselves? Are spaces in our building safe and supportive of challenging conversations? Are adults and leaders comfortable responding to, intervening, and building on difficult emotional exchanges? This is a professional journey I'm committed to. It is not one that will happen overnight, and there is not a perfect roadmap to follow. I've been listening to student stories, amazing and powerful alumni experiences, and unfortunately the depth of pain from students that have been made to feel like others or outsiders in their own community. Every event like this, every conversation that results in action is worth it. I consider myself a strong woman, but I admit I've had to restructure my thinking. Maybe not in the way that you think when I say that, though. My story in my military service has afforded me a chance to build relationships with people around the world of all races, religions, lifestyles, and political beliefs. I owe my life and my leadership to incredible men and women of color that fought for me, with me, and built me up in the United States Army to be a stronger version of myself. But what I've realized is that my open mind, admiration, and my experience are simply not enough. My personal growth has come from my understanding of important terms and my own identity within them: privilege, structural racialization, and owning an anti-racist voice. Privilege is not taking away from my hard work or the obstacles I have overcome, but an acknowledgement that race has not led my life or daily narrative. The feeling of defensiveness that begins at times I've learned is a point of growth for me. Instead of defending my personal thoughts, I need to listen, process, and learn. If privilege is used to create a network of allies, privilege is something I must own, understand, and use to bring others up. I cannot just say I hope and believe, but I must do the work. My kids are counting on me, my students are counting on me, and my colleagues are counting on me to do the work. In the words of Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And now I have the honor of introducing Mrs. Yuling Cheng Bear, an entrepreneur, marketer, CEO, mother, and valued Avonworth School Board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. DeWillett. And thank you to Mr. Michael Warren and the Social Justice Club for this event tonight. I'm humbled to be here today, not only as an Avonworth School Board member, but also as an Avonworth community member and an Avonworth parent of 2 girls. You know, I've thought a lot about the meaning of tonight's event, and I'd actually like to take a moment and ask you a question. And here's my question. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong? Think about that for a second. A moment where you did not feel like you belonged. I think each of us has had that feeling at some point. We felt that. Maybe we weren't wanted on a team, or maybe other kids were saying something about us, or for reasons that just aren't obvious, we didn't fit in. Or maybe you're a girl that was not born in this country, and you're Taiwanese American, and you're trying to fit in. That's something I can relate to. And what I do know personally is that when you don't belong, it hurts, and it hurts a lot. So now imagine experiencing that hurt every day, experiencing it often. That's painful. And it may be because you're Black, or you're from a different country, or you identify differently from others. And one unkind remark, or some sort of overt stereotype, or maybe even outright racism tells you that you don't belong. That is not right. So here's the thing about belonging. It's not something anyone should have to earn. But if you do feel like you belong, it's something you're obligated to share generously with people who do not feel like they belong. Because we all have a part in creating that sense of equal belonging. Because at the end of the day, we all want to belong. And to create that sense of belonging, it starts with each of us taking a step back, listening carefully, and paying attention. And at least here in Avonworth, we want to make certain that all of our students feel welcome, that we make certain that all our students see themselves in what they teach and what we teach and learn. And we want to make certain that we uphold genuinely what it means to be the kind kid. So whether we're an adult or a child, we can be more generous. We can be more welcoming to our community members. We can learn from each other by listening, and in particular, listening to our youth. And together, we can create that caravan of change we want to see in our community. I'm inspired by the Social Justice Club, and I promise tonight I will do my part in paying attention and listening. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who I recently heard in a forum about social justice that drew more than 500 people along with her two colleagues, Jada and Macy. Please help me welcome Avonworth Jr. and founding member of the Social Justice Club, Hannah Palmer.
Hello everyone, and whether you are here virtually or in person, thank you for being here tonight. My name is Hannah Palmer, and I created this event to bring people together so we can reflect and grow on our experiences within the Avonworth community. In the wise words of Rosa Parks, to bring about change, you must not be afraid to take the first step. We will fail when we fail to try. We are all here to unite as one to bring change to the unjust world that the Black and Brown community face on a daily basis. Thank you to all of our speakers for volunteering to share their stories and experiences. Your words speak volumes. I would now like to introduce to you two of our alumni, Emily Tyler, who will be speaking and performing an original song, and Darius Simmons, who will also be speaking. Thank you.
Fight fire with fire, but it never gets us far. We gotta find a way to heal the sadness and the scars. I know our history is stained, but I know that we can be the change. We gotta make the decision to end the division in our community. 'Cause together we're stronger, and then we can conquer any adversity. We're all human, we got the same heart that marches to a beat. Unity will bring us peace. We have to work together. I'll take your hand if you take mine. I know it may seem hopeless, but believe me, there is light. And once we have equality, we can finally say that we're all free. Yeah. We gotta make a decision to end the division in our community. 'Cause together we're stronger, and then we can conquer any adversity. We're all human, we got the same heart that marches to a beat. Unity will bring us peace. Unity will bring us peace. Unity will bring us peace. Oh, oh, we gotta make a decision to end the division in our community. 'Cause together we're stronger, and then we can conquer any adversity. Yeah, we're all human, we got the same heart that marches to a beat. Unity will bring us peace. Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Tyler, and I am an Avonworth graduate from the class of 2019. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It brings us together for an important conversation and for reflection on what we, ourselves, can do to make a change. Over millions of years, as humans spread around the world, our skin evolved to have various levels of melanin. Depending on their exposure to the sun, this made humans have different colors of skin, each one having radiant beauty. In a physical sense, the color of our skin served and continues to serve as an adaptation to our environment and protection from the elements. However, in a social context, the color of one's skin is not a protection for everyone. For some, it acts as a shield. For others, it is used as a weapon against them. Throughout our history, this was present through slavery, through segregation, through laws that excluded certain immigrants because of their race. Now, we see it through discrimination in the job market, through the media, the justice system, and even the healthcare system, just to name a few. The problems have not ceased, and our society as a whole is still uncomfortable to face them. However, this is why we have gathered here tonight. This is why we join together as a community. We see and understand the problems before us, but we are not uncomfortable. We are not scared. We are ready. Ready to make a change. Ready to see each other for our actions and our achievements. Ready to keep alive the very flame that Dr. King sparked when he proclaimed his dream. We are ready to heal the scars of our past and to create a new future of love, acceptance, and peace. My understanding of racial inequality deepened in my junior year of high school during a partnership with Perry Academy. This was sponsored through Mrs. Marnie Arnold and supported by our principal, Kira DeWollet. Here, my fellow students and I held discussions on racial inequality in our communities and the differences between our schools. As a person with white privilege, I knew from then I wanted to be a part of the solution, and I developed a plan of action. I educated myself on inequalities that are still present in our society and on different types of microaggressions. I learned from my mistakes, and I grew from them. I used my social media platform to spread messages that educated my followers on discrimination and on current events. I signed petitions to bring about justice, and I had difficult discussions on racial awareness with my family and friends. I still continue to do these things today. This is my pledge. But the actions of one person are not enough. The unity of our community and our nation as a whole depends on the actions of many. The amount of change we make will depend on our bravery, our strength, our compassion, and our persistence. With these attributes, I know we have the power to write a new story for our nation. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Darius Simmons to the stage.
Hello, my name is Darius Simmons from the class of 2018. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't prepare anything, but I chose to, for this moment, I just want to speak from my heart. I have not grown up in this community. This past June marked 9 years since me and my family has moved here. And during that time, as I've grown and matured and still growing and maturing and trying to develop into like a black man in the United States, I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, and quite frankly, as I've gotten older and as my eyes became wider, it just became more of a prevalent issue than what I thought when I was younger. I'm not going to lie to you. I would be lying if I didn't say if I felt accepted in this community, because I do. I have many great friends. Everyone that I've come in contact with, I haven't dealt with any racial issues. However, most of what I've experienced have been indirect. You see, because I've heard a lot, and a lot of things have been said to me, not directed towards me, but towards my race. And one instance that comes to mind is when I was told that at a graduation party, a parent who was speaking to a group of girls who were white told them to not date a black man or to not date a black person, because all they're going to do is just hurt you. And when I heard that, because at the time I was dating someone, that stung, just because I knew that's not how any person that I've known or seen has treated someone of a different race, whether they were dating or not, for that instance. And there are other times when I could be sitting next to someone, them not knowing that I was hearing what they were saying, however, they had very negative and racial connotations. An example of that actually was during one of my classes, because at the time, the main issue or debate going around was the Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. And one student said openly, with no hesitation, if you can't stand for the anthem or you can't stand for the flag, then you might as well just leave the country. When I heard that, that stung, only because I knew the message that he was trying to bring to the country. And for her to say that while I was there, not necessarily caring about how that would make me feel or the other people who were black feel, kind of surprised me, to be honest. And it only opened my eyes to the fact that while there are not many of us, the ones who are here, we don't feel that support from the community to speak up about these issues. So for the most part, a lot of us stay silent because we're afraid of how we'll be perceived in the community, which is not okay. I think going forward, we need to do a better job of trying to make the black students at Avonworth feel welcome, feel supported, and that they're also being seen and heard. And I know, like, during that time, even if we thought or wanted to kneel just to show our support for the movement, I can say for myself that I was afraid of the backlash of what would be directed towards me and how people would think of me, because since I've been here, I've tried to create a reputation for myself that was positive. And I didn't want to do anything that would ruin that, regardless of your political views or how you felt about the situation. So I just think in this community right now, we just got to show support to the people who are here and to anyone that comes, so that we can all feel welcomed and that we can all feel that sense of belonging, even though there are a lot of things right now in the world that may say otherwise.
Thank you, Emily and Darius, for those powerful words and song. My name is Jada Geist, and I am one of the co-founders of the Avonworth Social Justice Club. I wanted to thank everyone coming here tonight again. We really need unity during this time, and you all being here is a great step. You are here because you believe that Black Lives Matter. This statement should not be controversial or politicized, but to some it is. How can all lives matter if groups of people are being oppressed and citizens have these subconscious prejudices? As a white person, I see my privilege. I do not understand what the Black and brown community has faced, but I have made it my priority to educate myself. I hate that we live in this world that treats people of color so horribly. We need to listen, we need to learn, we need to do something. I do not have to worry about being killed in this country because of my race. Is it fair that they do? We need to speak up, stand up, fight the good fight. This is the time for change. Being an ally is so important, especially now. We need to be supportive, open-minded, and willing to have these uncomfortable conversations. We can't stay silent in the face of inequality and oppression. We will now hear from our parent voices, Mrs. Nelson, Mrs. Godine Newhouse, and Mr. Wright, and then we will have a performance from Emily Tyler and Mr. Warren. Thank you all again. Here's Mrs. Nelson.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Nelson, and I'm a parent of rising 11th, 9th, and 6th graders at Avonworth. I'm here to talk to you about my experience in being an ally to people of color. I grew up in rural Western Pennsylvania, not an area known for its inclusivity. However, my parents were outwardly not racist, and so I learned to be the same. It wasn't until many years later that I began to understand that all good intentions aside, simply believing all people are equal isn't enough. Historian and author Ibram X. Kendi says, "We are either racist or we are anti-racist, that we either support the ideas that have led and continue to lead to racist systems, or we actively resist those ideas, and that it's not enough to just be not racist." As a white person, that means introspection relative to our implicit biases and our personal failures to stop racism, as well as reckoning with the systemic racism that is built into our society. To do this, we need to acknowledge the privilege that comes with being white. I don't know what it's like to be a person of color walking down the street in Ben Avon. I don't know what it's like to be a Black mom sending her teenage son to a mostly white school. But I can support the Black community by listening to what they need. I can get involved, from not letting a racist comment made by a neighbor go unchallenged, to learning about the systems devised to oppress people of color and fighting to dismantle those systems, to voting to ensure our government officials are working toward these same goals, to instilling in my kids the importance of this work, and to make sure our schools are teaching the full history of our country, even the ugly parts. To be a good ally, we have to recognize our own privilege. We have to learn about the struggles that people of color have had and continue to experience. And then we have to fight as if those struggles are our own. This can be uncomfortable. It should be uncomfortable. Saying you're an ally is easy, but being one is difficult. I'll close with words from the essay written by John Lewis shortly before his death earlier this month. If we are to survive as one unified nation, we must discover what so readily takes root in our hearts that could rob Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina of her brightest and best, shoot unwitting concertgoers in Las Vegas, and choke to death the hopes and dreams of a gifted violinist like Elijah McClain. I heard the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on an old radio. He was talking about the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence. He said, "We are all complicit when we tolerate injustice." He said, "It is not enough to say it will get better by and by." He said, each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, speak up, and speak out. When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something. Democracy is not a state. It is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build a nation and world society at peace with itself. Ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. Voting and participating in the democratic process is key. The vote is the most powerful nonviolent change agent you have in a democratic society. You must use it because it is not guaranteed. You must also study and learn the lessons of history because humanity has been involved in this soul-wrenching existential struggle for a long time. The truth does not change, and that is why the answers worked out long ago can help you find solutions to the challenges of our time. Continue to build union between movements stretching across the globe because we must put away our willingness to profit from the exploitation of others. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for those words.
Good evening. I first want to thank the students for having the vision to put on an event like this and to have the support of the administration and staff to do so. My name is Melinda, and by way of introduction, my husband Roy, who's African American, and I moved to this community 4 years ago with our 3 teenage sons. I would say that there have definitely been times where we haven't felt welcome here, which is something that no parent wants to see. But as a mom to biracial kids, I have sort of a unique vision where I can see my own privilege, and I can also see how assumptions about race harm the other people in my family, and how it benefits me. And navigating our district and our community, whenever we're making a big decision, race is always one of the factors we use to decide what it is we're going to do. And I think it's hard for particularly white parents to know what that feels like, because growing up white, that isn't something my parents thought about. And it's kind of a luxury that unless you confront that and have some self-reflection about that, it's something that you don't consider the people in our community who may not look like us, how they feel. There are many things that I think we need to do more and be better about doing in this community. We are living through a time of racial reckoning in our nation, and that happens as a nation, but it also happens in communities. And so I appreciate being able to speak here, and I appreciate what I've heard so far from the speakers, that this community has has a responsibility and also has courage to live up to that responsibility. Think about Black Lives Matter movement and how proclaiming that Black Lives Matter is somehow a political statement. I have a hard time understanding how proclaiming that the lives of my sons matter or that the life of my husband matters is something that could be seen as controversial or be met with skepticism. But if you talk to your neighbors, you won't be surprised to find out that there are many people who feel that way in our very own community. So that should tell you the amount of work that is ahead of us. Many of you are probably on your own journey of self-reflection and understanding the deep racial injustice in our nation. And I find it inspiring that we have this event and that there are this many people participating. I would say that I challenge us to do as much as we can and to be anti-racist, to confront racism, not simply just to say, I'm not racist. This community definitely needs people who will be anti-racist so that we can create a culture here where everyone feels welcome and where people feel like they can speak up, particularly people from communities that aren't well represented here. So again, I want to thank the students for having the vision. I want to thank the board for passing the anti-racist resolution at the board meeting. I want to echo, it's important for us to look at our curriculum and to make sure that voices of all colors are represented in the curriculum, and to take a hard look at the history that we are teaching kids in this district and make sure that it examines all of our history and not just parts of our history. So when Ms. Dwullett used the quote from Maya Angelou, we know better, so we need to do better. And it's on all of us to be a part of that change and to do better. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to first of all thank Mr. Warren and the Social Justice Club. I know at their age I certainly wasn't doing anything this inspiring, so kudos to them, to these young ladies for all that they've already accomplished. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the proud husband to one and father to five. I have 5 kids at some level of school here in the Avonworth School District, and my 2 oldest daughters, Olivia and Willow, are sitting over there. I was happy they could join me until just before we left home. They told me that they knew I had the heart to speak at something like this, but they weren't confident I had the maturity. So it was a little bit of a shot to my self-confidence, but nevertheless, I'll do my best to make them proud. Part of the struggle with speaking behind so many great speakers is a lot of the points have already been made, and what I had written down that I thought was so profound all of a sudden seems rather bland. So I'm going to attempt to tell a story, what's inspired me to be involved and what's inspired me to be vocal. In 1993, I was a freshman at United High School, very similar to a community where Mrs. Nelson grew up. And the principal at the time came to me and asked me if I would consider to be a mentor in a shadowing program for a new student by the name of Jamal. And I was flattered and excited and said absolutely. And I took Jamal around the school that very day, and showed him the different classrooms. And as I'm showing him the different classrooms, I'm pretty sure I hear the N-word being spoken. I'm not positive, but it was enough to rattle me a little bit. But I was determined. Jamal didn't seem rattled, and I was determined not to show any fear or any sign of weakness. So we proceeded for the next couple weeks, showing Jamal around, taking him to football practice, and just trying to make him feel welcome in the community. And about 3 weeks after they moved in on a Monday morning, my mom woke me up at about 6:45 a.m. to turn on CNN to Brush Valley, Pennsylvania, and video of a cross burning in Jamal's front yard. And bullet holes from a .30-06 shot all through the front of his house. I remember at the time just feeling hopeless, feeling helpless, and just so angry. So angry that people that I called friends in this community were capable of doing something like that. I wrestled with this for a long time, and in many ways I still wrestle with it. And flash forward 24 years, the summer of 2017, a dear friend of mine from Cobblestone, his name's Ross, had a wife and 2 kids here at Avonworth, and he was incredibly intelligent, incredibly proud, incredibly personable man who asked me to stop over and told me a couple of days after school ended that year that he was moving, that he wasn't going to stay in this district anymore. He said, "Chad, when I started here, I said to my son and my daughter, my wife, no one's going to tell us where we can be. No one's going to make us feel like we don't belong." He said, "I believed that." He said, "But after so many days of my son coming home and listening to jokes that include the N-word," he said, "I have to protect now. There's no longer an opportunity for me to tell him to bear a cross that I can't explain and I can't justify." So they moved. And I remember thinking to myself, just stick it out, just fight a little bit longer. But in those moments, I realized it's not their job to be tougher. It's not their job to be more resilient. It's our job as a community and as a school district to create a culture where they feel accepted. I can no longer hope that my son's good friend who's in private school comes to Avonworth, because I hope they're tough enough, and I hope maybe they don't hear any offensive words. It's up to us as a community, as a school district, to raise our level of tolerance, to show people that they're accepted, and to speak up when people speak poorly, when people use derogatory terms, no matter how in good humor the comments are. To show any level of acceptance to those types of comments is compliance. You know, and one of the biggest things that has occurred to me in these past couple of years as I've wrestled with this is I look at the people on the other side of the aisle. I look at the people claiming patriotism as their own because they don't kneel. They believe that makes them a better American. The same people that claiming the greatness of our country is based on exclusion of other people. I look at those people and they all look like me. They're almost all white males. And I look at our forum here, I look at the Social Justice Club, and I say, where are the white boys? I look on our Facebook feed and I say, where are the white men speaking up? And I'm not claiming I don't deserve any credit, because quite honestly, it wasn't until about 3 months ago that I watched my daughters post Black Lives Matters thing. To my discomfort, I watched my wife walk around with Black Lives Matter shirt, and I was a little bit uncomfortable. And I had to have a moment and say to myself, why am I uncomfortable? I believe 100% in what they're doing and what they're saying. But how cowardly am I as a white man to put my wife out there to talk about what matters, to talk about equity, to talk about inclusion, my 2 daughters out there to be braver than me. What we are lacking is white males. I look around here, I see so many women that are outspoken. I see so many kids that are outspoken. We need more white males. That's my call to action. I would ask any wife, any child here, go home to your father. If your father is white, go home to your father and ask him, is he comfortable speaking out? Why isn't he comfortable speaking out? I said to my wife, I'm starting to think there's a group, like an underground group of white guys that I didn't get invited to, because it's simply unacceptable. And I'll end with this. I said to Mrs. Nelson that I was disappointed. Her speech was so good, and I was disappointed because I know you're supposed to end on a good quote, and I didn't come prepared. But I will say one of the quotes, and I might botch this a little bit, but one of my favorite quotes is, if you're not using your privilege to empower others, you're wasting it. Thank you.
Soon we'll all be free. Soon we'll all be free. Soon we'll all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my
Thank you, Mr. Warren and Emily Tyler, for that wonderful performance. For those who don't know me, I am Macy Schaefer. I'm one of the co-founders of the Social Justice Club here at Avonworth. I've faced many issues, not really issues, but I've noticed many things over the years, and I've always been the quiet one. I've never been able to speak up and voice my opinions because I've been too shy or didn't want to face any backlash. And now, after joining the Social Justice Club, I'd like to say I'm proud of what I'm doing. I am proud of what they're doing because we get to create a platform for people to speak. I'd like to share some words from the late Representative John Lewis. He said, "If you see something that is not right, not just, you have the moral obligation to do something about it." Those words mean more now than ever before. We've seen millions of people, regardless of race, age, gender, all standing up for what they believe in. Today is a chance to reflect and discuss the issues that have impacted our country the past few weeks. And now, I'd like to introduce Alexa Nelson and Leona Simmons to talk about their experiences in the community.
My name is Alexa Nelson, and I am a rising junior at Avonworth. I have never once been looked down upon because of the color of my skin. That is white privilege. I have never had assumptions made about me because of my race. That is white privilege. I wasn't afraid when my grandfather was pulled over for speeding, especially after the officer just let us go without punishment because the kids are so cute. That is white privilege. When I have heard people say the N-word in the halls, I didn't have to worry that they were saying bad things about me, and I didn't have to worry whenever I explained to them that they shouldn't say that word. That is white privilege. I don't have to worry about not getting hired for a job or accepted to schools because of my race. That is white privilege. The people who say that white privilege doesn't exist have also never had to experience these things. How can a white person say that the struggles that Black people have had to go through just don't exist because they've never experienced them themselves? Students at Avonworth and all other schools need to learn about the struggles that Black people have had to go through in the past and in the present day. Juneteenth is a holiday celebrating the day that the last of the slaves were freed. I didn't know about it until this year, and I was never taught about it in school. The Tulsa Massacre took place in 1921 when a Black community was attacked with weapons provided by the city itself. 75 to 300 people died in the attack, and we don't even know how many. I never learned about this in school, despite it being considered the worst racially motivated attack in U.S. history. What about the New York City draft riots in 1863 with 663 deaths? Or the Memphis riot in 1866 with 46 deaths? The New Orleans Massacre in 1866 with 23 deaths? And so many more. I would recommend going to blackpast.org where you can read about each of these individual events and many more because that's where I got this information and it has a lot. So how about we get more modern with these things? Innocent and unarmed people being killed by police for the color of their skin? Statistically, 14.8% of Black people killed by police were unarmed, compared to 9.4% of white people. Once again, this is white privilege. So what can white people do to combat this inequality and create a better future? We need to first acknowledge our privilege and educate ourselves and others. We need to vote and sign petitions. If we hear someone being racist, we need to tell them that what they're doing is wrong, and we need to explain them why it's wrong. We need to amplify the voices of those who are oppressed and be allies. We cannot remain neutral. We have to actively speak out against injustices. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leona Simmons, and I am a rising senior here at Avonworth. There's always assumptions that go around, like, well, there's no way you experience racism firsthand because you go to Avonworth. That's not the case. There have been many times where I'm told by my peers, well, you're different or you're not like them because you act white. Who is them? Black people? Because last time I checked, I am one of them. I proceeded to ask, well, what do you mean I act white? And they're like, well, you're so nice. So black people can't be nice. And this comment made me realize that the only reason why they quote unquote accept me is because they see me as white. They're not accepting me for who I really am. These types of statements are insensitive to my race. I am black, and I will always be black. It hurts to know that I'm not accepted because of what people see on the outside. Being told that I'm okay because I'm different than their stereotype of a black person is not a compliment. Being told that I'm okay because I act white is not a compliment. White isn't a personality trait. I act the way that I do because of how I was raised by my black parents, who taught me to be respectful, kind, and accepting of others. Furthermore, there are certain classes that we have to sit in year after year that only highlight the negative side of African Americans' history, never acknowledging the numerous contributions that we have put forth towards the success of America. Having to sit in those classes when we talk about my history is very uncomfortable. There was a joke that went around the school when I was younger, and it went like, what does an apple and a black person have in common? They both look good hanging from a tree. It's not okay for students to make jokes that are derogatory or make light of some of the things that black people had to go through. And I wanted to take a moment to share a story or something that happened to my brother that made me uncomfortable. One day, he was socially profiled in our neighborhood. He was with one of his white friends, and as the officer was directing his questions only to my brother, he noticed his Avonworth basketball shirt. Immediately, he changed his tone in conversation and started asking him about the team. Since that time, my brother is no longer allowed to walk to his friend's home, which is right down the street. He has to drive to his friend's house, no matter how close they are. My parents aren't comfortable with us walking alone in our own neighborhood. And I will say that even when my brother and I just go out to get food or something, I want to go with him because I'm uncomfortable and I'm afraid or scared of what could happen. Racism is everywhere. It doesn't discriminate between the young and the old. It doesn't discriminate between different schools. It's everywhere. It's at Avonworth. Whether you choose to believe it or not, it is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana and Alexa, for your powerful messages. I would now like to thank the following people for making this event possible. A huge thank you to Dr. Ralston, Dr. Hadley, Mrs. DeWollet, Mrs. Romensky, Mr. Hall, Dr. Battistone, Dr. Miller, Mrs. Ives, and the Avonworth School Board for their endless support throughout this whole time. They've given us a space and a platform to share our message. I would also like to thank Mr. Warren for helping coordinate this event and for sponsoring the Social Justice Club. Thank you to Jaime Martinez from North Allegheny for giving me this idea and guiding me through it. Thank you to Macy Schrieffer and Jada Geist for starting the Social Justice Club with me and helping me with this event. Thank you to my parents for teaching me to always defend and help those in need. Thank you for all the people who shared their stories, their gifts, and their experiences tonight. And thank you to the Ohio Township Police Department for their participation. And finally, thank you to everyone who came out to support the Caravan for Change. I would now leave you with the words of Nelson Mandela. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And to conclude tonight's event, Dr. Ralston would like to say some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. What a beautiful evening it is tonight, but it's also painful to hear the stories and experiences of others. I'm a white man. I grew up in a 100% white community. I didn't meet a first black person until I was a sophomore in high school. He was a rival at a nearby high school who ended up becoming a friend. And through that relationship, I learned about the pain and suffering he had experienced. I grew from that, but not as much as I thought I should have, especially when I started hearing the stories of others in our community and their experiences in school and the pain that they endured. And I realized I'm still a white man, but now I'm a white man who can take advantage of his power because of his position. And that's something that I'm incredibly inspired to do this evening. I can't say enough about the powerful message from our speakers and performers this evening. I'm so thankful to live and work in a community with students who are motivated as advocates to make their school and community a better place for everyone. And that includes all of you here this evening. I'm thankful for the teachers like Mr. Warren who help our students to find their voices and purpose. I'm thankful for all of you parents who are passionate about making their community and school a better place for children. And I'm thankful for our school leaders who are committed to making our schools places of belonging for all. I'm thankful for our school board and is committed to ensuring that our school district pushes back against racism and ensures that all students have equitable opportunities to learn in an environment that's free of bigotry and bias. I'm excited about the future of Avonworth. I really am. Our new strategic plan provides us with the direction needed to grow our curriculum and school culture so that every child grows to appreciate the wonderful diversity our world has to offer. In closing, I would like to share a quote from a white man, but a white man who was an incredible ally at a time of civil unrest in our country, and that man is Fred Rogers. We live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's easy to say, it's not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. Then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes. I hope that we can all stand together to be heroic. All of our children depend on it. Thank you for joining us this evening, in person and online. I hope you use this experience to motivate and inspire you. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Have a good evening.